Hello, this is Georgina Rose, part-time esoteric content creator and surfer of the Enochian Aethers, and welcome back to the Darling YouTube channel. On this channel, we discuss mysticism, religion, culture, the occult, and everything on the fringes of esoterica. And in this video, we're going to be having a conversation. And this conversation is about really anyone who's involved in the spiritual life and world, whether that's mysticism, occultism, witchcraft, whatever it is you're doing. And really a fundamental question that needs to underlie it. Why are you doing it? To what end is this practice in your life? If you are getting involved with this type of stuff, it is incredibly important to have a goal, a purpose, and an aim. If you are lacking a goal, purpose, or aim, when you are going through this world, you are inevitably going to get lost. All the horror stories I've read about people's occult experiences or esoteric experiences, really a theme that underlies them, well, there are a couple themes that underlie them, but one of them is not knowing why and simply following the rabbit hole to follow the rabbit hole. If you're taking this stuff seriously and you are, learning from, say, a real tradition, you're going to be asked this question a lot. So why are you doing this? Why are you here? What is your aim? I wanted to talk about common aims, what an aim should be and what it should not be. So this also raises a question. An uncomfortable question of, should everyone be esoterically minded? Should everyone go down this path? And there are two positions people tend to take on this. The first position being, the occult is for everyone, magic is for everyone. And the other position is, some people simply cannot handle the mysteries and those people should be gate-kept out. I personally take a center road on this. I believe that everyone can tap into the esoteric. Everyone can tap into the occult. Everyone can have these mystical experiences. But should everyone? I don't think everyone should. I think it's within your possibilities for everyone. But for certain people, this path is not the path they are meant down. For some people, being on the exoteric side of religion is what is right for them. Because when we talk about religion, there are two sides to everything, right? There is the esoteric, the hidden, the mysteries, all that. And the exoteric, the teachings, the doctrine, the outward-facing bit of it. And it's not, a knock on you as a person if maybe you aren't right for this path. But if you feel as if you are, keep watching and I'll talk about why you're doing it and goals you should have. So a common goal that people have for this path, and this is one that's discussed a lot, is gnosis. Gnosis refers to knowing, knowledge. And basically what this is acquiring as much information as possible at the divine so that you can make your life better and so that you can become closer to the divine, right? This is the goal of any tradition that's related to Gnosticism, but generally really every Western occult tradition has this infused into it. There is no reason why you will be doing these rituals and having these experiences if you are not trying to gain gnosis. Now, another common aim, and this is one that you see a lot in modern traditions, is will, true will, pure will. It goes under a number of names. Basically, this concept is the idea that every individual has a path that is set out for them. And if they can align with this path, everything will fall into place. Their life will work out, everything will start, moving, well. The thing is, when you talk about will is not want. They are not the same thing. When people say, do what thou wilt or something like that, right? A lot of people are like, okay, so that means I do what I want. I do rituals because they're exciting and they're cool and I get to have these cool experiences and I get to get stuff, right? But no spiritual path is about the spiritual ATM. It's not about put in ritual, get thing. It's about put in ritual, have experience, and grow from experience. When we are talking about the spiritual world, we are talking about relationships. You do not just put in thing and get thing. It's about developing an interaction. And yes, the spirits are not just going to give you like free stuff, right? It's a relationship, a back and forth. It's not just, getting things. And if you think about it this way, you're never going to advance. You're going to be stuck and you're not going to have the important growth. Because when we talk about things in our practice that are, typically the best for us, it's often not manifesting, that new job or putting up that glamour to make us more attractive. It is the internal growth, the inner alchemy, the transmutation of the soul, the purification of the heart, these things. So when we talk about will is not that momentary gratification. In fact, if you believe in will and you are doing rituals to discover will is obviously not want. Otherwise, why would you need to do rituals to discover it, right? Will is set forth by a divine source that we have to discover through ritual. Otherwise, what is the point of the ritual? And the rituals that we will use to discover our will are often very mystical in nature. They are communing with the holy guardian angel, which to do that is months and months and months and months and months of prayer, asceticism, and getting closer and doing this repeatedly. Devotion, discipline, all those great ingredients that build up mysticism. It is not just, doing what you want. Otherwise, what would be the point of seeking it out? It negates the point. And as well, if you are following your will, you cannot be a slave to your base urges, right? You should not be at all. I think that some people have this idea that, oh, well, I'm not a Christian, I'm a pagan, so, morals aren't true, and if morals aren't true, that means I can just do whatever I want all the time. I'm gonna, get lit, 420 blaze it, 24/7, or whatever. As you can tell, I do not 420 blaze it, considering how awkward that just sounded. But, you know what I mean? The thing is, though, if that is your life, often you're not even in control. If you are not in control of your situation, how are you supposed to control anything outside of you? How are you supposed to control the macrocosm? How are you supposed to get these results that we are trying to get? To discover will is to be in control. And when you are living with will, it is very much in alignment, right? It's kind of like Taoism, right? You are living in a state of will, in alignment with will, and then you have all this stuff fall into place, right? Things don't fall into place because you're doing what you want. Things fall into place because you are living in this state in alignment with things that are higher than you, that are above you, and you are following those messages. Now, another goal of mysticism, and this is from typically very right-hand path, traditional mysticism traditions, and that is annihilation. When I say annihilation, I do not mean just the destruction of the self. It kind of sounds like that. It kind of sounds like, oh yeah, that's just metaphysically killing yourself. No, that is not what annihilation is. Annihilation is fundamentally based on a theological belief that above everything, above the chain of emanation that we exist through, there is a point of nothingness, right? Maybe even layers of nothingness, maybe even layers of non-existence, depending on the paradigm you're talking at. And to annihilate is to unite with this, right? And so it is kind of a form of unification. So let's talk about unification broadly. Unification with the divine is one of the most common mystical goals. And basically what that is your entire spiritual practice is based around getting closer to your God, your gods, whatever your theology is, right? You're getting closer and closer and closer. And eventually the goal is to unite fully and kind of truly connect and escape, say, the cycle of samsara or something like that, right? To go through this. And this is a long process, a process of purification. Within us, we all have spiritual diseases, toxic habits, things that hold us back, things that we are slaves to, things that we are out of control with. There is nobody who has a perfect, in control, fully spiritually ascended life, right? Especially not when you're at the beginning of your journey, right? At the beginning of your journey, I think most people who get into this stuff are honestly in a really rough, challenging, and difficult place. And then through this process, they learn about themselves. They learn to know thyself, which is one of the great axioms of mysticism. And as they know themselves, they're able to sort of pull this stuff off them gradually, to face their shadows, to conquer their shadows, and to integrate them in. Because this is the thing, you cannot get rid of parts of yourself. You can't throw them away. They don't just disappear. They are always going to be part of you, but you can integrate them, right? And move past them in the way that they tormented you or made you suffer previously. And then you can truly grow as a person and move beyond the things that held you back. This process is known under a number of names. Some people call it shadow work, though I think shadow work is a term that only really applies to some aspects of this. Some people call it, I know the Sufis call it the purification of the heart. There are also people who call it the alchemical transmutation of the self, or inner alchemy. We think about alchemy, I think we often think about these big labs where there's a bunch of vials and all that, yeah. But alchemy is largely also about the internal. And I would say the most important alchemical works were not people creating gold out of lead or attempting to do that, but rather the belief in understanding this layer of ourself, right? And sort of combining and transmuting the things within ourself to become stronger, better, higher. Now, another goal that people commonly have with this practice is apotheosis. So apotheosis is a thing that I think people discuss in a way that is not productive, not accurate, and not truthful. So apotheosis, I think most people are familiar with, like, as a concept meaning to become God, become a god. And yeah, kinda, but not like that. Apotheosis is essentially, making yourself more spiritually strong, growing your spiritual body, and being able to impact what is around you. And fundamentally, taking this Godhead, this divinity that's above us, and trying to embody it and bring it into us, right? If you've ever done an invocation, which is where you call a spirit into you, you've kind of done this on the small scale, right? You have, when you do those invocations, it often starts with a devotional, like, part of a phrase. Like, you'll be like, I honor you, I praise you. And then eventually you start describing the traits. And as the God enters you, you start speaking as if you are that God, right? That's how a lot of invocations go in the West. And apotheosis is kind of like that. It's not as literal as people make it out to be. And it's not as edgy either. There certainly are people who've tried to take it in a very literal direction, but I don't know if that's as productive as people think it is. Now, another goal of mysticism and esotericism is accomplishing the great work. The great work is a phrase you're going to hear thrown around a lot if you get into esotericism. The great work is fundamentally, achieving these spiritual aims, transmuting the self, and it is the final result of alchemy. So to accomplish the great work is to complete these things, to complete your transformation, complete your growth, and become something different, overcome your limitations, and become something better. Now, another goal that comes up a lot is, there's a number of terms for this, one of them being ascension. I don't like the term ascension. I think the term ascension is used cringily and without context a lot of the time. But what people mean when they say ascension is moving beyond this sphere of existence into something higher. Now, a question that's raised is, how can that be possible while we're alive? The answer is it cannot. It can't. You're not going to override this physical existence while you are living, but when you enter into the next world, you absolutely can, because life does not end when we die. This is not all there is. The material plane is one of many planes. So basically, after we die, we ascend and move up that sort of chain of creation into something higher. It is not, literally like ascending to 5G. I hate the term 5G. The term 5G makes me want to rip my hair out. But you know what I'm talking about when I say it. But that's the thing about a lot of these goals. Are we ever able to accomplish them while we're alive? For some of them, yes. Will, I think, is an easy one, comparatively. It's still a long, long road to discover your will and live in alignment with that will, because even once you've discovered your will, you have to do this thing called living in alignment with it, which basically means rejecting every single thing that is not your will so that you remain living in alignment with your will. That's a big task in and of itself. But a lot of these goals, gnosis, unification with the Godhead, all these things, you can't do while you're living. So what's the point of mysticism if it's just about things that will happen, after we die or after we reincarnate or whenever we move to the next world? Why does that matter here? And that's because this stuff is a long, long journey. It takes years and years and decades and decades and decades and pretty much your entire life so that you can get closer to this. Because, when we die and when our material lives end, what will be with us? It won't be our material belongings. It won't be the successes we've accomplished in this world. It will be what is going to bring with us to the next one, which is largely our spiritual life. And I know it's a morbid topic, but it's one we should think about when we were talking about why we do mysticism, right? I do not believe you should do mysticism because you are scared about what comes next. I don't think faith and religion should come from a place of fear, because often when faith and religion comes from a place of fear, you're not doing things for the right reasons. You're doing things for your own benefit rather than the benefit of the divine. And that is not love. It is not love if you are only doing something because you're convinced if you do not do it, you will suffer. That's being like Stockholm Syndrome. Many people have beliefs like that. And some of those beliefs, sure, I'll give it some credibility, but that's not love. That's not what mysticism is. If you are doing something, solely to avoid punishment or suffering and not out of devotion, Are you really doing it? You need to consider these things. Now, on the flip side, and this is something I touched on a little earlier in the video, if you are only doing mysticism and the occult for material benefits or pleasures or something like that, just because you want that, sensation, those goals, those results, because honestly, the results of this stuff is incredible. I mean, my life is so much better now than it was before this journey. You're also not really doing that for love. You're doing that to get something. There's a really good phrase. I read it online. I don't remember what tradition said this, but it stuck with me. If I go through religion to avoid suffering, hell, torment, a bad reincarnation, you know what I mean? All those things that people fear, send me to that. If I do it solely out of a desire for a good reincarnation, paradise, heaven, breaking out of samsara, peace, nirvana, whatever that is, then do not give that to me. But if I do it solely for love and devotion itself, then grant me those rewards and protect me from those punishments. And I really, really like that. Because when we talk about mysticism, real mysticism, real stuff that develops a solid relationship that actually gets you these things, it is a back and forth. It is not just put in thing, get thing. It is a complicated relationship, and that requires two things: devotion, discipline. Those two things will get you all of these goals. And while it gets you these goals, it will also manifest those material things you want. It will also infuse your life with purpose, because that is another thing that we gain when we go down a spiritual path. We gain a purpose. Life is not purposeless. Things do not happen for no reason. Destiny exists. There is a meaning to life. Life is not just a thing that we go through that's crazy and weird and strange and has no meaning to it. No. Things are here for a reason. If things were not here for a reason, there are many things in this world that would not be how they are. So think about all of this and ask yourself, what is my goal? To what end? To what aim? And think of what your answer might be. And think about what your real answer might be. Because I think often people will answer this question in a way that they think is correct. Like they'll be like, oh, I'm doing this for gnosis. But deep down, that's not why they're doing it. They're doing this for some other reason. They may be doing it to get things, or escapism. Escapism is another trap. There are some people who do occult practices, do magic, do all these things to escape, the mundane monotony, boringness of their life. But it's not to really get those periods of growth, but just to experience crazy things. If that's what you want to do, I don't know why you're in the occult. The door to psychedelic use is down the hallway. That's not what we're about. We're about growth and change. So think about all that. What's your answer to the question? Contemplation is a key part of any successful spiritual practice. There is no mystic ever who has ever made anything worthwhile happen who does not contemplate. So look deeply and answer the questions. And if you don't like the answer that you come up with, figure out how you can change it. Figure out how you can change your mindset. Figure out how you can, redirect your focus and your path into something that is productive for the world. So that's all I have to say on this topic. Like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell. If you're subscribed for 93 days, you'll meet your holy guardian angel, and you'll never need to think about these questions again. If you liked this video and want to keep these videos coming, support me on Patreon. I post ritual guides every month, an extra video every month, early access, and if you're a high enough tier, you can meet with me one-on-one, and we do a sort of mentoring program. You can also support me on Venmo under @.darling. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Substack, though I'm not very active on Substack. I'm trying to become more active on Substack, Telegram, and I host the podcast, The Postmodern Iconoclast, which is actually on this YouTube channel, so you don't need to actually go anywhere. But if you don't like watching this on YouTube, it is also on most podcasting platforms. It's really everywhere but Apple Podcast. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.